It's called there is no the in the title. It is pitched as Once Upon a not Once Upon a Broken Heart. What is wrong with me? Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to give you the ultimate guide to read paranormal romance fantasy this fall, and the first book that I'm going to mention is Bridgerton meets Peaky Blinders, and it is so entertaining and ridiculous. You will fall in love with these books. The first book is called The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels by India Holton. This is the first book in a trilogy. Now, I don't know if we are going to get more books or not, but for now it is a trilogy. It is a historical fiction romance, and in this book we follow Cecilia, who is an ideal Victorian lady, but she's also a thief. She's a member of the Wisteria Society crime sorority, and she flies around England drinking tea and blackmailing friends and acquiring treasures, until one day Cecilia's path crossed with Ned. Ned is an assassin who got sent to kill her, but from the moment he meets her, he's completely smitten with her. His employer, his name is Captain Morvath, he possesses a Gothic abbey bristling with cannons and is determined to rid England of all the presumptuous women, starting with the Wisteria Society. So when Morvath imperils the Wisteria Society, Cecilia is forced to team up with her handsome would-be assassin, Ned, to save her aunt, and hopefully proving once and for all that she's as much of a scoundrel as the rest of them. This book series is a combination of espionage, fairy tale-ish fantasy in a Regency era, with smart and sarcastic characters with a lot of action and a lot of sense of humor, and this is an absolutely enjoyable adventure with thief assassin enemies to lovers. Book 2 is called The League of Gentlewomen Witches, and book 3 came out this year, is called The Secret Service of Tea and Treason. I highly recommend these books if you want to laugh and at the same time you want a little bit of action. These are for you. The second book came out this August. It's called My Roommate is a Vampire. It's very popular now on Instagram by Jenna Levine. This is a charming paranormal contemporary romance that you will not want to miss. We follow Cassie, who is a broke artist on the brink of eviction. She was so desperate when she found a too good to be true apartment in Chicago as a roommate. And from the beginning, she knew that only someone with a secret to hide would rent that room for that price. So when she meets her new roommate, Frederick, she immediately notices that he's far from normal. He sleeps all day and is out at night on business, and he talks like he walked out of a Regency romance novel. He also leaves Cassie the cutest notes around the apartment. He cares about her art and asks about her day. And the story takes a turn when Cassie finds bags of blood in the fridge, and she finds out that her new sexy roommate is actually a vampire and that he has a proposition for her. This book was so entertaining and will make you laugh out loud, with Cassie, who is quirky and selfless, and a cinnamon bun dreamy immortal. You will love this book. The next book that I want to mention is called Go Hex Yourself by Jessica Clare. This is a paranormal rom-com featuring a witch. We follow Reggie, and Reggie applied for a job thinking that she's going to work at her favorite card game called Spellcraft, but she ended up working as an actual familiar for an actual witch. So she became an apprentice to this eccentric witch, but there is only one problem. She hates the guts of the witch's nephew, who is also a warlock. His name is Ben, and Reggie thinks he's the very arrogant, insufferable, and he orders her around all day until someone with a vendetta targets the household, and Reggie finds herself compelled to work with Ben to break a deadly curse. And our enemies to lovers begin. In this book, there is a pervy black cat and the most amazing meddling aunt, and it's grumpy sunshine, and you have a lot of pining. This will definitely keep you entertained, along with the next book that I'm going to mention, which is the sequel to this one, that is called What the Hex by Jessica Clare. I swear she has the funniest titles. This was released early this year. In this book, we follow Penny, who wants nothing more than to be a familiar to a witch. She's been a member of the Society of Familiars ever since she was old enough to join, but there's just a small problem: no one is hiring. So when an unorthodox arrangement to apprentice under the table to a forbidden warlock presents itself, she takes it. Our warlock is Willem, and he's banned from having a familiar due to past transgressions, and this has resulted in limited magic casting abilities. The problem is they immediately clash, but at the same time, Penny is loving spell casting until one day someone begins targeting Penny, and both of them have to work together to catch their enemy. And there is the fake dating trope that we all love. If you love it, I do. This is an amazing sequel, action-packed and a twisty revenge storyline, and the most adorable characters. The next book took the internet by storm in the last couple of months. It's called there is no the in the title. It's called Assistant to the Villain. This book just is everywhere. This book was everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere you see this book. It is pitched as Once Upon a Time meets The Office, and as the title suggests, it is about Evie, who applies to work for a villain as his assistant, and she starts to develop a teeny crush on the terrifying, temperamental, and undeniably hot boss. Something happened that makes her suspect that there is someone working against them in the dungeon and that he or she want to take the villain down. Now Evie is trying to figure out who is sabotaging his work. If you are looking for a palate cleanser, if you are looking for a good time, if you want to giggle a little bit and swoon a little bit, this is just a fun, cozy fantasy to read this fall. The next book that I want to talk about is called Hex Appeal by Kate Johnson. This is a witchy rom-com pitched as Encanto meets Hocus Pocus. We follow Essie. Essie lives in Good Winter Village, where a bunch of witches and their pets live in a magical place called Bendam House. No one knows where it is located, or any visitors forgets its existence as soon as they leave the place. And this house changes by the moods of the witches. So the witches live rent-free for nearly 300 years. That's a very good deal. Till their landlord, a handsome, quirky, blonde, boyish lawyer, his name is Josh, who recently inherited this dilapidated mansion, decides to meet with his tenants to collect the debts. And one day he follows Essie to the house, and he gets drawn further into the lives of the inhabitants, until an incarnated monster starts to threaten their existence. Essie teams up with Josh to confront the Witchfinder, who can bring the end of the world. This is a smart, fast-paced story with a lot of humor. If you are looking for a warm, cozy read with likable characters, a low-angst witchy story, this is your book. Okay, next up, I need to mention this one, The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. Here we follow Florence, and Florence is a ghostwriter that doesn't believe in love anymore and has to go back to her family business after her utterly charming editor Benji refuses to give her an extension on her book deadline. Her family conducts funeral services, and Florence and her father share a special gift. Both can communicate with and assist the souls of the deceased in fulfilling their unfinished business. When Florence opens the door of the funeral parlor expecting a visitor, she's greeted not only by a ghost, but also by the apparition of Benji himself in need of her assistance. This is one of the cutest, heartwarming paranormal romances ever. The chemistry and the tension and the angst between Ben and Florence was palpable and tangible, and you will love every single bit of it. Highly recommend you pick this up. Okay, next up, The Undertaking of Hart and Mercy by Bannen. Hart is a marshal, and he's tasked with patrolling the strange and magical wilds of Tanria and getting rid of the possessed corpses and taking them back to the Undertaker. Our Undertaker is Mercy. Mercy is so busy. She's in charge of her family undertaking business, and Mercy and Hart have an antagonistic relationship until one day Hart finds himself penning a letter addressed simply to a friend. Much to his surprise, an anonymous letter comes back in return, and a tentative friendship is born, and they strike up a pen pal relationship without knowing who the other person is. If you like a quirky fantasy rom-com with side characters that are hilarious and lovable, this is for you. Next up, I'm going to talk a book that was so popular last year. It was everywhere you turn, you'll find this book in front of you, the X Hex by Erin Sterling. So in this book, we follow Vivian, and 9 years ago, Vivian broke up with her boyfriend, and because she was so heartbroken, she accidentally cursed her ex, but she never took it too seriously and didn't think more of it. Until Reese, her ex, goes back to the town where Vivian lives, and when one calamity after another starts striking Reese, Vivi realizes her silly little Hex may not have been so harmless after all, and things start to happen that compel Reese and Vivi to work together to save the town and find a way to break the breakup curse before it's too late. If you are looking for a fun, flirty and steamy read, this book is for you. Next up is the sequel to the X Hex. It is called The Kiss Curse. We follow a side character from the first book, Gwyn Jones, who is perfectly happy with her life in Graves Glen. She, her mom, and her cousin have formed a new and powerful coven, and she's running a successful witchcraft shop, and she's starting mentoring some of the younger witches in the town. And as Halloween approaches, Wells comes back to Grave Glen and enters a professional competition when he opens a shop of his own just across the street from Gwyn's shop. When their professional competition leads to a very personal and very hot kiss, both Wells and Gwyn are determined to stay away from each other, convinced the kiss was just a magical fluke. But when a mysterious new coven of witches come to town and Gwyn's powers begin fading, she and Will must work together to figure out what these new witches want and how to restore Gwyn's magic before it's too late. Gwyn is a quirky, fiery, and smart character. This is so entertaining, so gripping, and we have the funniest enemies to lovers, and I really think that you should pick this up after you read the first book. This was my last recommendation. If you made it this far, please leave me the witch emoji. I appreciate you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!